Hey, welcome back to the show. Arif, Halaby, Jeff Gerard on your place for news, talk, and information. We're talking about some retirement options, some things that you're doing as you're planning for retirement. We talked about some diversification, not just where your assets are held, where your dollars are held, but even bigger than that, the taxation of those assets. So one of the solutions, you've always heard me harp on it because I just feel so bad that people are leaving, at least productive, especially productive people are leaving the most beautiful state, I think, in the union, which is the state of California. It is part of people's retirement strategy. I'll tell you, 3 out of 4 folks that work with us while they're in the middle of retiring and planning for all that will tell us that part of their retirement goals and their strategies is actually to leave the state of California. They have to retire in Idaho or Nevada or Texas, Florida, where it's insane to me because people have spent, my dad spent their entire life trying to make his way to California from Lebanon to Africa, had to spend many years in Africa, 10 or 15 years before coming to the United States, and then Washington, D.C., and New York, and then Michigan, and then finally drove to California and made it in 1964. So I share that with you so that you can see there are people that drive their entire life, young people, college students. They think this is the place for it used to be honey and what was it, golden honey? Now it's fruits and nuts or something they say. I don't know. Where the wackiest laws in the world are made and people think they're productive and the Democrats are the wealthiest people. Do you know how many hundreds of millions of dollars Dianne Feinstein is worth? Now, I want her to be successful, but she has no clue what it's like to be worried about, do you pay your kids' college tuition? Or do you pay your mortgage? Or do you get a student loan? No clue. Barbara Boxer and her husband, by the way, the only one, really, making any money on the high-speed rail. Her husband has I want to say $1 billion, but that's a big number. It's probably hundreds of millions of dollars in a contract for her husband. How do you do that? How do you not say that, listen, you're a politician, you voted for this thing, you're a part of it, you have friends, you're powerful. You know what, your friends and family, they can't make money on this thing, especially it's very controversial. How is it that we say that's okay? And then you guys are like, how about that? Let's pick up the kids from kindergarten. What are you doing this weekend? Do you not think how insane it is in the state of California that we are doing things so amazingly well that not one politician in the state was overthrown, Republican or Democrat, and we're very heavy Democrat in the state. Not one was kicked out of office, incumbent, on the last election. How is it that the rest of the nation is now nearly 70%, 70% of the nation's governors are Republican, 70% of the nation's, approximately, legislatures are Republican, conservative? I don't know. Look, you can say I'm one way. Some things I'm fiscally conservative, socially, look, that's your business. But how is it that we think that things are going so well when you and your friends and your parents and your family are retiring and part of their solution, their strategy, is to move? When did that become like part of, how many people say, I'm going to retire from Kentucky, I have this great farm here, and I'm going to move to California? The people don't do that. They used to. So what I'm saying is, if you expect people to pay taxes so that you and I can live and the roads can be done, then we can't have a bunch of people making $15 an hour. You need people that are making $500,000 a year or $300,000 a year. But when you're taking half of their money, would you stay? You wouldn't. Who employs people, folks? Is it the poor? Is it the guy who I pass on railroad coming to work? Quote, the poor guy with a smartphone and a jacket and air conditioning and carpet on the floor who's grateful to be here. Is that the person that's going to employ 6 or 8 or 10 people? I'm talking small business. No, it's the person who's like, this is a tough month. Oh, great, we made a lot. And we overburden them with regulation and permit fees, city of Santa Clarita. Amazing. So when you are planning for retirement, taxes are a huge part of it. Look in the future and say, are we spending money more today than we can afford? California is. Many other states are not. So I don't want just your plan to be leaving one of the greatest nations in the world. Because wouldn't it be great? You're receiving a pension, you're pulling money from your retirement accounts, and you're not taking a job. Just think about that for just a second. That's the kind of person we want. They go to the restaurants, they go to the dry cleaning, they go to the car wash, they go to a play, they buy a car. All of those are jobs that they are, but they're not taking any jobs, right? Because their money is now their income. You want those people to stay here. That's why a lot of states in the union don't tax pension money. Did you know that? They might have income tax, but not on pension money, because they're saying, no, come on. So when you take the amount of states that don't tax income normally, right, the Washington, Tennessee, Wyoming, Texas, Florida, I'm going to miss a couple, Nevada. There's, I think, one or two more. There's 7 or 8 of them. But then you also take the ones that are favorable. So how many people work for the city of Boston? Wonderful police, fire, county, whatever. Up in Massachusetts, very strong union, very strong, liberal, progressive. And then they take that money and they retire where? Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. They're not retiring in the same state, or at least if they are, it's their part-time residence. So their income tax is generated on their full-time residence, which is a tax-free state. I'm sharing that with you because we can punish those people. Oh, you can't move. Oh, you can't take your money. The Supreme Court's already ruled on that, by the way. California tried to sue people that would take their pension and go, oh, you earn the money here, pay it here. Well, I'm not spending it here. I didn't take it out here. And the citizen won. So we can punish those people. We can say, maybe there's something to this story. Maybe they're just not greedy individuals trying to take their money and run. Maybe they have a point. But that would require us to listen, to conversate. Watch out. Tax scams are coming, folks. There's one that's coming up here. In 2004, U.S. Treasury received more than 20,000 taxpayer complaints. Today, folks, 12,000 calls per week.
Wow.
20,000 in 1 year in 2004. Now it's 12,000 calls per week in scams, tax fraud scams. Hey, you owe money. I love it. We had one call. You owe the IRS money and you better pay right now. Give us your credit card and tell us. Oh. And I said, really? They said, yes. And so, this is so-and-so. They give their name and I said, wow. Does this normally work? They said, excuse me? I said, do people actually give you their credit card number over the phone when in such a scam? Well, sir, I don't know what you mean. This is, you don't understand. We're the IRS, and we're trying to collect a debt. And I said, wow, you're actually pretty good at this. I bet you make a lot of money. Click. How many other people? I have an aunt who has spent hundreds of thousands on these scams. And I think what happens is once you get part of that loop, they call you all the time. And so I go to her house and I say, Auntie, what's going on? This is another $8,000. It costs you, $2,500 to live. What are you doing? Oh, well, because this is what they do, folks. I can tell you firsthand. They take and they say, you won the Canadian lottery. Oh, well, we entered you in. You're like, well, thank you so much. And we entered you in and you won. You're like, wow, love it. Surprise. So you won $1,000. So send us $100 and we'll send you your $1,000. Now you think, what if it is true? Because we have to pay shipping and handling and taxes and fees and transfer tax, whatever. They make up the story. So she did. She paid a very small amount and she got a large amount back. Well, gosh. They said, so now you're entered for the mini grand prize. And that's a larger number. And of course she won that and they asked for a much larger amount back. So she got that. And then came the grand prize. So, but you need to send us $50,000 and you won $500,000. She's thinking, I'll do it. Well, when all in all, she received about $5,000 from these people, by the time she paid and got her money back and all that. Now they want $50,000. But they've done what they said. They agreed to it. She gave them money. They did exactly what they said. They baited her in on the smaller number. And Jeff, we are seeing people time and again fall for this, and she did. And she's still waiting for her $500,000. It's only been 3 years. Unbelievable.
And it's so easy that we can be tricked into those things, especially it's beautifully crafted. I have to tell you, as a scam, you give something and you get more back 10 times that. Why wouldn't somebody believe that? But you have to wonder, when does my luck run out? Really. We've got the Nigerian email scam that is kind of, everybody knows about that now, right? That's kind of like anything else that's out there. It's like an old joke that's just been around for generations. That's fine. We know that. But that's kind of a new phenomenon where you're giving money and getting some back, and it's working 4 or 5 times in a row. That's pretty incredible.
And here's what happens is you start to decide what is happening to each of your cities. Do we have such a bloated democracy? Is a city, county, state, federal job, is a government job supposed to be what it is? And we have a society have to figure that out. Was it supposed to be a place that you got a job, you didn't make a whole lot of money, but at least you were secure, and at the end of the rainbow you had a pension? That's what a government job was supposed to be like. And then, but the private sector is making more money. All right, fine, we're going to give you health insurance. Oh, okay, great. Okay, now we're going to give you dental insurance or discount life insurance. And, so suddenly people are, this is not bad. I could do this. Mm-hmm. And then they say, now we need a pay raise because they're going to lose us. We're going to go to the private sector. Well, that's fine. Then you would lose your pension. Oh, no. And so the unions, can you imagine that there's a public sector union? I know I sat on one of these boards for years. That means it was our job to protest our own money to force you to pay us more money. It's not like sell widgets or computer desktops, right? We said, forget it. We're not going to buy your desktops anymore. We're not going to buy your cars. Go ahead and strike. Or yes, we want to pay more money. Keep those people employed. And so when public sector unions came into being, suddenly the pressure on the retirement account strategies, because the job of a union representative is to work to get more money for their union representatives, for their union members. And so now today, you have this big machine that needs to be fed, that a city like Chicago, right, bastion of conservatism, a city like Chicago just taxed Netflix 9%. Oh, if you have Netflix, you have to pay tax. Like, what? And all they do is they're like sharks. They're on a hunt. I know. We've been up in Sacramento. They say what they do is they come in and they look for a place that hasn't had a tax increase for a long time, and they say, we need to increase that one. Instead of saying, well, wait a second, we've been paying 3 people to do one person's job, watch them dig a hole, right? You guys have seen that. Everybody has. Watch 2 people watch one guy think about filling a pothole. Next. I don't know how other states do it. They must say, listen, you actually have to work. Do your job. And then what we have is massive amounts of revenue. Your retirement dollars are going to be pressured tax-wise. I don't know how or what, but Chicago to apply a Netflix tax of 9%. When I was up in Sacramento visiting some of the politicians, a group was up there, and I was sitting in the lobby waiting to speak to the state assemblyman, and I said, hey, what are you here for? And she says, oh, well, I'm here representing this particular organization, and we're trying to push for an increase in the marriage license fee. I said, wow, why? Well, because it hasn't been increased for 15 years. I said, okay, but why? You want to encourage marriages. You don't want to discourage them. Why would you raise the fee on that? It's like, I need your permission to get married, really? It's like the old kingdom days, right? The king had to come and give his blessing on you getting married. It's the way it used to be. And we revolted against that, I think, but that's history. And then I said, well, what are you guys going to do with the money? Well, we think it should supply organizations to make domestic violence awareness more prevalent. What? Now, who in their right mind would say, I think we should have more domestic violence? Of course not. How about just say, oh, I have an idea. How about we cut over here to spend over here? But they don't. So I want you to focus. I'm really beating this up, this segment, because you need to be thinking creatively. Where and how is the money going to come from to feed this massive machine, nearly $20 trillion in debt? It has to come from somewhere. Right now, the U.S. economy is about, it depends on who you talk to, growing at about 1% a year, 1.5% a year. Just to pay for the public services and the pensions and the organizations, we need to grow somewhere around 3.5%. That means we have to cut a big portion, about a third of the jobs. That's not going to be fun. We have to raise taxes on 2/3 of the people. That's not going to be fun. So you've got to consider, what is this going to look like in my particular arena? So, Jeff, one of the things we're taking a look at is the overall cost on dollars coming into and being a function of a small system, a small government. What is it that you would say, if I'm just a regular Joe going to work every day and I need to save money for retirement, what's my first place to look at?
Well, I would say start looking at something simple like an IRA. That's a great place to, on an individual basis, just take money and put it aside. Every time you get paid, you can stick it into a credit union, a community bank. You can open up a savings account. You don't have to be some savvy investment guru. You can just say, look, I want to park these monies aside, because I think it's important, number one, to start the savings habit, okay? That's the first thing. It gets you used to living on less than what you bring home. And in that IRA scenario, it kind of works like you would have a workplace 401k or some type of retirement account at work. Now, if you have a retirement account at work, I would say that's probably the easiest and fastest way to start saving money, because before you even get your paycheck,
it comes right out.
It comes right out. Before you pay any taxes, if you have $1,000 gross that you're paid and you put money into your 401k, let's say it's $100 that paycheck, now the tax conversation starts at $900. And it's just like if you were to pay your health insurance first or something like that, before you pay taxes, that money goes away.
And there could be a matching.
Correct. You could be getting some free money. So I would say, if you have, first and foremost, if you can check the box, yes, I have a workplace retirement plan, start there, because you might be getting some free money and you're not paying taxes on that money, and you don't have to worry about it. Just kind of a set it and forget it. If you don't have that, I would say start looking into an individual retirement account, which is, and the reason I say that versus just a regular savings account, which those are important as well, we can cover that as well, but an IRA, the clock's ticking on that, so to speak. So if you were going to put money into an account, it's got a cap on it, okay? You can only put in so much into an IRA per tax year. So you have basically from, if you were to talk about this year, let's say if it was 2015, for instance, you have from January until your tax filing of the following year to do that. So once that window closes, you're done, and you can never go back and put money in for the previous tax year. So that's why I stress that. If you're going to just put money aside, though, you can do that at any time. But the IRA has that window on it.
We'll be back in just a minute, folks. Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. We're going to wrap up retirement accounts, and stay tuned after the top of the hour. We're going to get into college savings accounts. What are those 529 plans, and how do you work that? That's after the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll finish up with IRA accounts. Arif, Halaby, Jeff Gerard on your place for news, talk, and information. AM 1220 KHTS.
Yes.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hours. We wrap up this hour of the program. We're talking about retirement accounts, and some of the interesting things that happen when you're trying to plan for retirement is there's always that unexpected cost. You know, Jeff, we talked about, as people are saving and planning for retirement accounts, focus on two big things. Always have that emergency fund.
I think it's important.
You know, even when you're retired and you receive your paycheck from or your pension and Social Security, all of that, save 10% of that. Put it into that savings account, put it into your emergency account, and then take another 10% for the fun things.
Right. And you might be saying, well, gosh, Arif, I already live on less than when I was working, and I'm on a fixed income. How can I do that? Well, think of this for a minute. You might have that fixed income. You might have a pension or Social Security coming in. And heck, you might not even have a pension statistically. A lot of people don't have that anymore. So you're on this income and you have this bucket of savings. Think about this for a second. If you had an emergency, if you had to put tires on your car, buy a new refrigerator, or move all of a sudden, if something happened where it was not expected and factored into your monthly budget and you didn't have that savings, you would have to go pull money out of that retirement account, which we already talked about has two problems with it. Number one, you're going to have to pay tax on that money, and two is you're probably going to have to pull out more than what you actually need. If you need $1,000 and it's a taxable account, meaning you haven't paid tax on this yet, you're going to have to pull out more than $1,000 or settle up with Uncle Sam at the end of the year. So
we had a client I spoke to yesterday. They moved out of state. Surprise. It's a big trend, folks. I'm telling you, these are folks that are moving, and they moved up to Oregon, moved out of state, and they love, of course, where they live. You can get a bigger house and taxes and the whole story. Well, they said, Arif, we need to increase the amount we take from our retirement accounts. I said, okay, great. That's wonderful. They said, we bought a car for $700 a month.
Oh.
I thought, oh my goodness, $700 a month. That's an enormous expense for a car. To me it is, especially when you're retired, and especially when you have to pull out $900 a month. You have to pay $200 in taxes. Now in California it would be about $1,000 a month actually. So they're saving money by paying less taxes on that same car, but they're having to pull out $900 a month just to put $700 in their pocket and then to pay it for a car that's gone down, and each month it's worth maybe $400, right? So you're not buying, you're going backwards because cars go down in value every month. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy a car. I love automobiles. But just make sure it does what it's supposed to do. So when you're pulling from an investment or a retirement account or an annuity or a savings account that goes up in value, and you're buying something that goes down in value, you're losing in both directions, right? Because you're no longer receiving the increase, and you now are going backwards each time. So that is an expense that came up in retirement. They're retired. They're in their mid-60s. They needed a car, whatever their situation was. And so then they ended up having to spend the money on it. So just be prepared, and that's what Jeff's talking about, new tires on the car, or in this case, a new monthly payment. That is important, because if we didn't budget for it yesterday,
we need it, Arif. We deserve it. We've worked so hard.
And look, everybody there is a moment in time when you're going to need the new automobile. I love that idea, that's important. But we were thinking about, gosh, maybe we ought to start looking. We're in our late 40s now. Maybe we should start looking for a house that is a single story, so that if we have knees and hip issues, we can stay there, have it paid off by the time we're ready to live and retire and all that. And we started thinking, wait a second. One of our relatives just did that, and we pulled up, what does it cost for an elevator? You realize the cost for an elevator, and it looks like one of those hamster tubes, really. It's kind of cute. And it's all pneumatic based, and it's all glass, so there's no claustrophobia issues going on. And it can fit 2 people, and you can put it in various corners of the house as long as you can get upstairs, and they can put holes in roofs and all that. Holes in ceilings. $3,000. $5,000 if you want the super duper model, whatever. Backup battery, the whole story. So, what is the cost to sell a house, to move, to get your house ready for sale? It's a heck of a lot more than $5,000. So, think creatively. When I said you got to think creatively, I'm thinking about not just how do I buy a car, because there are ways to do that. If you're going to end up having a car payment for a very long period of time, and you're in your 60s, if you don't care about, if money is an issue, then you ought to think about, am I buying an SUV? How hard is that for me in the next 10 years to get up into it? Because I'm going to get older. Am I buying a small sports car? How hard is it for me to get down into that sports car? I looked at one recently. Oh my gosh, it's almost like you have to dive into it. They're beautiful cars, these Italian-looking type cars, or the BMW i8s. Those are just stunning cars. They look like art, actually, not even an automobile.
Well, maybe if you can fall into it, you can fall out of it.
Well, yeah, so I thought, how do I get into that? And you actually have to sit on the edge, turn and scoop, and then you drop into your seat. Yeah. And then when you get out, you flip your legs up, over, drop them down, and then oof yourself right up. How do you do that when you're 60-something years old or 80-something years old? So if you're buying a car, if you're going to commit to pulling money from a retirement account, then the issue's got to be, how do we create something that's going to last for a very long time?
Well, and I don't think that's the conversation people are having with themselves in their head, is they think, oh, we're going to have this car for the rest of our for the rest of our lives. Well, is that a car that you can grow with? And I think if you can take a look at something where you say, I might have this for 10 years, then factor in 10 years.
Yeah.
Don't say this is going to be the last car I ever buy, when statistically you've bought 30 cars over your lifetime. You're probably not going to keep it forever. Who wants to keep paying that car payment when something starts to fail? Or you say, oh, you know what, that model is, there's a new model out, and that was my favorite car.
Yeah, and you budgeted for the car payment. If that's part of your expense and your enjoyment out of life, I have no problem with that. just make sure that it's part of your budget expense and your retirement account. I'm okay with all that.
Yeah.
The challenge that I have is people that are living on a fixed income and life is good and they have a car and it may not have a backup camera and it may not be super fancy, and I understand all that. But just remember that when you're going to spend money the most is the what I call the brackets of the 5 years of your retirement life, because statistically you're going to retire for about 15 years. You're going to have the first 5 years when you're the youngest and the healthiest. You're going to do the most traveling.
Sure.
You're going to fix the house. You're going to do repairs and little gadgets and hobbies and all that fun stuff. The middle 5 years, you're going to do fun things. That's nice, but you're probably not going to leave the house too far. You're going to stay within 100 miles, statistically speaking. You're going to be close by. You're going to do things with the family and the kids now, and the grandkids are now old enough to really be fun. And then the last 5 years is the big expense, which is healthcare. Co-pays, medical, assisted living, somebody to come to the house, help out around the house. Those are expensive things that we have to think for, but that's 15 years down the road. Mm-hmm. If you retire younger, maybe it's 20 years down the road, but that means that first 5 or 6 years of spending money might be 10 years.
Well, if you think about this, statistically, I think the average cost for someone to have some type of assisted living, if you're going to go live in home in one of those facilities, is about $90,000 a year. So if you're spending most of your money at the beginning of retirement and you think, oh, I'm just going to kind of coast into the golden years and just have most of my money spent, fantastic. But if you have to come up with $90,000 a year at what was supposed to be the end of your retirement, I mean, that's a lot of pressure on somebody financially.
And keep in mind that often the house is used, whether it's using a reverse mortgage or whether you're selling it and using those proceeds.
Sure.
So we understand that you're going to have some money there for emergencies and a backup. Recently, a client had an accident and needed medical care, needed to actually transport themselves from one part of the country back here to Santa Clarita. And in doing so, their life insurance actually helped pay for some of that transport cost.
Nice.
Through motion picture. So you may find, again, back to that creativity, you may find that something that you didn't understand may help out with your medical. Something that you didn't understand may help out with some of your college expenses. We're going to get to that after the top of the hour. Some things that you may not have ever known about when it comes to college.
Well, and thinking back now to the insurance conversation, I talked earlier about long-term care. There are some ways to be creative to have long-term care costs without putting money into a long-term care policy, which if you don't lose is basically like the insurance that you never used on your car or whatever have you. So there are things you can do, and I like all the options that people have. They just have to kind of know what they are and do what fits them.
Yeah, if you've been in the military, there's a program called Veterans Aid and Attendance. There's 3 different pensions actually that every veteran automatically qualifies for depending on their age and as they get older.
And their spouses as well.
That's right, and especially if you have to be married to them when they pass away, if they've already passed away. If you divorced, then I think you're no longer eligible. But what makes sense is to go to veteranaid.org, veteranaid.org. That's another creative way to save some money there. Thanks for listening, guys. We're going to continue after the top of the hour. Stay tuned for information on college planning and helping your kids get into school. Arif, Halaby, Jeff Gerard on AM 1220 KHTS.